So you're here to implement the Fibonacci series in Python. But before all that, let's give you a brief introduction to the logic behind this implementation. The Fibonacci series is basically a sequence where each number is the sum of the previous two numbers. We start with 0 and 1, and afterward, each number is the sum of the previous two numbers. For example, 0 and 1 make 1, 1 and 1 make 2, 2 and 1 make 3, and so on. For the Python implementation, first we'll use a non-simultaneous updating method. This is going to be an unoptimized method, and I'll explain what I mean by this. Later on, we will explore how we can optimize this. Here is how the logic goes. You have two numbers. Number 1 is 0 and number 2 is 1. The next number is the number 1 plus number 2. After that, we update number 1, and now number 1 becomes the previous number 2, and number 2 becomes the previous next number. Then again we sum the two numbers, and it goes on. I'll show you the code so that it's more clear to you. Here, as you can see, initially we define x equals to 0 and y equals to 1, and z obviously x plus y. After that, we run the loop for, let's say, 10 times, and there you go. X becomes y, y becomes z, like we are updating both of these, and finally after the update, z is then again x plus y. If you run the code, you get a Fibonacci series. Great, it works. Take a look at the code again. It makes sense, right? Anyway, now moving on, you might realize we don't need three variables, x, y, z. We can just use two, x and y, by simultaneously updating both of them. If this seems confusing, look at this. Number 1 is basically going to be the previous number 2, and number 2 is going to be the previous summation. And we'll print just number 1 only as output to avoid duplicate values. So instead of three variables x, y, z, we are just using two, x and y. Now, what do I mean by simultaneous update? You are going to notice that in a few seconds. Okay, so first check this. We have x equals to 0, y equals to 1. X is going to be y, and y is going to be x plus y. If you run this, you see it does not output the Fibonacci series. Unfortunately. Why not? That's the question. So I want you to pay a really close attention to this. We are updating x and y, but the problem is Python executes line by line. So this x is already updated, and it's no longer x, it's now y. If you still don't understand what I am saying, look at this. These three should be the sum of 1 and 2. But the problem is x is being updated first. Then this is the input in y. So instead of 1 plus 2, we get 2 plus 2. Like this, 2 plus 2, 4. And instead of 2 and 4, we get 4 and 4, 8. So the problem is very clear. X is updated, then y is updated. So these are not simultaneous because of the line by line execution. That's why we can update x and y in the same line. X comma y equals to y comma x plus y. Now this x which updates y is the previous x, not the new or updated x. And if you now run the program, you see it outputs the correct Fibonacci series. This is a very optimized way of writing the code instead of what we wrote previously. So I hope that makes your concept clear about implementing this in Python and what mistakes you might make while doing so. And as always, thank you so much for watching.
Row, 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 row.
Row, 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 row.